Hello BookTube, this is round 2 of trying to do this video. My computer, I guess, does not like the editing software I'm using now, so I may have gotten a little overly ambitious with edits and cuts and stuff in the last one and discovered my computer will just shut down when trying to export the video. Got new RAM, stuffed it in the computer, still same result. So I'm coming to you with a lot of fear right now that this will never see the light of day. I don't know what's going on. It's gotten super frustrating. Speaking of things that have gotten me frustrated, I lied to you. So in one of my previous videos, I said that I was reading, or I had just finished book 99 of my new goal of 100 books that I was going to read for 2023, and turns out Goodreads had lied to me and had triple counted one of the books that I had read. So instead of ending the year with 100 books, I ended the year with 98 books read. So practically illiterate, but what can you do? I think I'm going to be a little more cautious going forward about trusting Goodreads blindly without having like my own personal tally going forward. But I just wanted to share with you a video of the best and worst of 2023. This was the first year I started on BookTube, and really, it caught me mid-year. I started in August, just in time for Garb August to read some trash for you guys. But a lot of the books I read previously, before that, were actually quite good. So I wanted to share with you my personal list, and I got some tech to assist me of parsing through those 98 books. But I just wanted to share like my best and worst videos. All of them are my worst video now. Assuming this works, this will be my best video. I want to share my best books and my worst books of 2023. Sorry, I'm looking down because I had my list right here. And then technology, as it seems to be lately, is just failing me. So, without further ado, I know the year well enough to tell you that the best book that I've read, the best fiction, rather, that I've read in 2023 is actually a cheat, and I will whittle it down, but I have a trilogy for the best fiction that I've read, and that is something we read for the Steve Tiberius Donahue, or the STD book club, and that is Wolf Hall trilogy. That consists of Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, Bring Up the Bodies, and The Mirror and the Light. And if I really have to pare it down to just one best book, I'm going to have to give it to Wolf Hall. This is a story of Thomas Cromwell sort of rising to power from, non-noble, common-born man into like the right hand of the king, and then his inevitable downfall. This book is mainly about his rise, but he really doesn't hit his stride until the second book, where he is working against Anne Boleyn. So these books are really good, but if I have to give one the edge, I'm going to give it to Wolf Hall because it stands alone the best. I might have actually, in the moment, enjoyed reading Bring Up the Bodies just a little bit more, because I really like seeing people like in power and just doing their thing, and being super competent. But this is probably the weakest story-wise of the books. And The Mirror and the Light was very satisfying as a conclusion, but this book kind of borrows quite a bit heavily from the original book, and also takes like portions from the original book and reproduces it so they can, make sense as one volume. So I have to say the best book for the best fiction is, upside down, is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. But I do have a runner-up, and I want to stress that of all the books I have read, it's not like necessarily the best, it's just the ones that hit me and resonated with me the most. And so that's why it's not Steinbeck or any other classic, but it is The Conquering Sword of Conan. This is the third volume in the original Howard Conan set. Oh, there's my ring light. Hello. This is the third volume. I think I just enjoyed these stories the most. I read these originally in 2020, and they really didn't land for me. But I was also going through sort of a medical crisis at the time, and it was just an immense amount of pain, and this was just distraction. And I think that sort of robbed me of the initial enjoyment of reading these. But going back to them, these stories are really good to go back to. Not only is my memory really faulty, but it's just they hold up with a revisit. And that's not something I have done traditionally often, is go back to books, which is strange that I would keep so many books if I didn't reread a lot. But I think that is starting to change for me, because a lot of the rereads I did this year were really good. But The Conquering Sword of Conan gets the runner-up place for Best Fiction. The next category is Best Nonfiction, and this is why I kind of need to not do this without an editor, because I don't have a physical copy of it, nor can I show a reflective screen very well. But hopefully you'll see it here, otherwise just pretend. The best nonfiction is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is a, somewhat basic but pretty comprehensive psychology book and psychiatry book, sort of going through different methods of dealing with trauma that we store up in our body, hence the title, The Body Keeps the Score. This book was just really good. I've gotten into psychology a bit lately, this year especially, and this was probably the best book as far as just wrapping it up and making it digestible. So if you have even a passing interest in psychology, this is a good place to start. So that's The Body Keeps the Score. The best nonfiction runner-up, also kind of in a similar category, and that is a book I really actually hate the title of, but it's a really good book. And that is How Not to Kill Yourself by Clancy Martin. This is a book about someone who, a nonfiction autobiography kind of thing about someone who really struggles with suicidal ideation. Something he just sort of shares with his journey, and it's very unflattering in a lot of parts, and I think that makes it hit home a lot harder. But you sort of get to go through his journey of his thoughts on suicide, his attempts on suicide, and while it may be triggering for some folks who are struggling with it, I think it's really good for friends and family of someone who is struggling with the same issue, where you can sort of get into the mindset of someone who's being as honest as he can about this impulse and why some people feel this impulse. This is not a one-size-fits-all issue, but this was a really good book. I got a lot out of it, and I would recommend it. But, approach this subject with caution if you're sensitive. But that is my runner-up for Best Nonfiction. Now we're getting into some of the bad books. The winner of my Worst Fiction award is something I had and I got rid of, and that is The Memoirs of Cleopatra. This book is not the worst written thing that I've read all year, but I got a grudge towards it because it is about 100, maybe 150 pages of really exciting material stretched into a 950-page book. Mm-hmm. It is a beast to get through, and it's a lot of stuff that is not all that interesting. At no point did I ever get a sense of the character of Cleopatra until maybe the very end of the book. It was far too late. None of the characters are explored deeply, so there's a lot of superficial things that happen, and it's agonizingly repetitious. So this book I didn't get along with, and I can't recommend it. So that was my winner of the Worst Fiction book. But we do also have a runner-up, and that honor goes to Wyoming Jones. Wyoming Jones is worsely written. I can't even talk. It is not as well written as The Memoirs of Cleopatra, but it's short. So I give it points for that. I can explore a bad book for 120 pages. Yeah, 120 pages. And come out relatively unscathed. But this book is so generic. That's its biggest flaw. It is a Western that I read for June on the Range. I actually got it because I was trying to get Day of the Gun, which is something that was also recommended by Steve Donahue during June on the Range. It's a book he really enjoyed. This is the first in a trilogy, and so I started here because I got them both at the same time. And this one, it's about a guy who is trying to avenge his father, and he just ends up going from place to place looking for the blonde cowboy. And, things happen, but, it's the generic cowboy things. I just didn't like it all that much. I would give it a 1 star, to be honest, maybe 2 if I'm feeling generous. But the follow-up, Day of the Gun, is really good. So I don't know what happened between these two, but I would start here and end here. I haven't read the 3rd book in the trilogy, but I'm not really going to seek it out. But this one, a lot of tension building, a lot of good characterization. This was phoned in. This was great. So there's a quick, small recommendation, too. Do you need something? Can you go downstairs, please? I'm recording. I'll come down when I'm done. Thank you. Okay. And the worst fiction, that is The Anatomy of Anxiety by Ellen Vora. This book, I don't even know who it's for. It's sort of discounts the idea that someone could be feeling anxious, even though it's a book aimed at people who feel anxiety. And between the two, I don't understand what she was getting at. A lot of the book is just like, well, you're probably really not that anxious. And then she prescribes a bunch of wackadoo things to, combat anxiety or pseudo-anxiety. Things like a coffee enema and stuff. And I don't know. It almost seems like a dangerous take for a type of book. If someone's really struggling with, heavy clinical anxiety, this book kind of just discounts that you are going through it. I think that's how it feels, and I just don't like it. I think it may even be dangerous, so give this one a pass. It's garbage. I don't have a runner-up, but I do have a biggest disappointment category, and that is something I already talked about at some length, and that is Holly by Stephen King. This book had good bones to it, and there's a good pedigree in the Holly Gibney series of books, starting with, not Finders Keepers. I keep forgetting. It's the other one. I can't think of the name right now. But there's a whole series of books featuring this character and some others in a recurring basis. Somewhat new for Stephen King to do, other than the Dark Tower series. But most of them are good. This one is not so much. It has a really good and compelling villain, really good and compelling story to it, but it's couched in a bunch of propaganda, or I don't know if it's propaganda per se, but it takes place in 2021, where the COVID pandemic is at a high point, and everything everyone thinks about circulates around COVID, which I guess kind of mirrors reality, but basically, if you're supposed to dislike a character, then they think COVID is fake, or masking is dumb, or staying away from other people is dumb, social isolation. And then anyone who you're supposed to like is like, oh yep, I got my mask, I got my vax, and all's well. But I would like to see more nuance than that. Normally Stephen King is known for really good, interesting characters. You get a few of their quirks and stuff, and it was largely missing from this. Basically, you just got someone's view on COVID instead, which got old fast. So, also, on a side note, I don't think, and this is edging into spoiler territory, but I don't think Stephen King understands or appreciates how hard it is to snap someone's neck. That's all I'm going to say about it, but yeah, that just seemed weird to me. If you know, you know. But it's still worth a read. But like it was disappointing because I was expecting a little bit more from this book. So that was the biggest disappointment. But the biggest surprise of 2023 is Star Trek Sarek by A.C. Crispin. I again talked about this recently. This was one of the final books I read, number 97 out of 98. But it was a really good book. It was it dealt a lot with loss, and some deeper issues were explored than you would normally see in a Star Trek book, or even in the show for a lot of like the original series content. It was kind of a book that's made for a Star Trek fan. So if you aren't heavily familiar with Star Trek, the original series, and the old run of movies, then I don't know how much you're going to get out of this book. But since I am an avid Star Trek fan, this book hit a sweet spot for me, and I really loved it. So that was the biggest surprise. And so this year, I'm going to try to read. I always put like my Goodreads goal at like 50 or 52 books, but I'm going to try to hit that 100 that I was robbed of this year. I could have easily hit it. If I counted comics, which I don't, as books I've read, then I would have easily hit it. Or even if I like counted some of those children's chapter books that I read with my son. But unfortunately, I don't count those things. It just doesn't feel right to my own personal idea of what reading a book is. So I missed it this year, but I think I'll be able to do it. Only a couple books in this year, but things have been stressful, and again, I've wasted a few days editing videos that you'll never see. So, anyways, I hope you are having a good year so far, and I hope to talk to you a little bit more frequently, and then cross our fingers that this will actually export. Thank you. Have a good one.